Welcome to Interesting Dinner Magazine. My name's Emma Monroe, and today we're going to be talking all things interesting dinners with Shane Ridley from O-Train. Shane attended an interesting dinner that I hosted in Toowoomba, Queensland in Australia. And welcome to this Google Hangout, Shane.
Thanks, Emma. Nice to be here.
Excellent. So, Shane, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your interesting dinner experience, please?
Okay. So I'm the founder and managing director of O-Train. We're a company that puts your training online. Work with clients all over Australia and a couple in the US, one in the UK. Always looking for some more. I was invited along to the interesting dinner. It's been a couple of months ago now, and it was interesting to say the least. I always enjoy a meal and a meal in good company, and found the experience to be. I guess one of the most intellectual conversations that I've had over an extended period of time in a long time, to put sort of a bunch of thinking people around a table and then moderate it with interesting topics and deep conversation made it a really interesting, and I'm probably going to use that word too many times, but a really interesting experience and also a thought-provoking experience. I came away as the dinner geek with a couple of pages of notes and thoughts and different things that I've since been stewing on and thinking about and pondering with since.
Would you mind telling our audience what your interesting topic was?
So I was talking about perceptions and customer perceptions, and I shared a story about a gentleman that I met who was a process engineer and bought a custom bike manufacturing business, a cycling bicycle business. And when he bought the business, it was typically a 90-day to 180-day wait for your bike. Someone buys a bike and they want it, with shiny wheels and a red seat and, curly handlebars, and they pay a big deposit, and some 3 months plus later, the bike turns up. And this gentleman was a process engineer, came from an engineering background, also a cyclist, liked the idea of the business, bought the bike. And the first thing that he did when he got into the organisation was he looked at the process of manufacturing bikes, and he sort of said, well, why does it take 90 days to produce this bike? It doesn't seem to make much sense. And started to do things like creating stock parts, still fully custom, but would have 100 curly handlebars on the shelf that he could put in, and just working through the process to reduce the time of manufacture. Seems like a reasonable sort of approach to take and the right thing to do. But as he explained the story, what happened is as he got better at manufacturing, his sales tanked. As his time to deliver shortened, he got less and less orders. And the challenge was that the perception from the market was if you're buying a customized bike, it should take a long time to build. In fact, 90 days seemed to be around about, the right time. You shouldn't be able to get a customized bike delivered in 72 hours. That just doesn't make sense. He then had to go through a process of re-engineering the business to have a slow turnaround. And even though the manufacturing was still happening quickly, they had to delay delivery or delay commencement to the client or customer so that the customer believed that it was a custom bike and there was so much work involved and so on and so forth. And what I found in the story, apart from the customer service part, but the really interesting thing was he ended up delivering the bikes in about 6 weeks. But he offered like a 3-week rush. So for an extra amount, you could get a 3-week rush, even though his actual build and turnaround time was still, under 3 days. So I thought it was a great story and just an interesting example of customer perception, how understanding your place in the market. Well, sometimes faster, better, cheaper doesn't work, particularly if you're in a specialised market.
And what I love about that story, Shane, is that even as an engineer, he took that customer feedback on board and created an even more profitable way to deliver the product in the customer's expected amount of time, and added on that rush fee even though from a production perspective, it didn't make any difference whatsoever. I love that. What are some of the lessons that you've applied from that story?
Well, it's balancing the idea of value created for fee received. So, and using that example, the same amount of value was created, or the same product was created. The tires and the frame and the handlebars all went together to create a bike. So the same thing was there, but the perceived value of the bike was actually not in the mechanics of the bike. It was in the customized part. It was in the part where I chose all the bits that go into it, and the perception is that should take some time. So in our own business, we have a software business. We also have a creative business. The perception in the market is that software should be readily available almost instantaneously. If you go and buy a Salesforce subscription, you give them your credit card and you have access. It's that quick. However, in our studio side, where we do creative e-learning, there's a perception that time and thoughts and process needs to go into making sure that it's right. So it's a balance between being able to turn stuff around fast, because our clients typically want it back quickly. But if we turn it around in 24 hours and then we're giving them a large invoice, they're saying, well, why am I getting a large invoice? It obviously didn't take you very long. It should be less. And the market, by and large, certainly our market, still has this dollars for time type perception. So if you deliver something in 8 hours and you charge $10,000 for it, that's a ridiculous amount per hour. They're happy to pay $10,000 because that seems like a reasonable amount for the value, but a $10,000 purchase perhaps should take a week or a month to do, because you need to put an appropriate amount of time and hours into creating it. One of the biggest challenges is understanding what part of the proposition the customer values.
Yes.
In our business, does the customer, and each customer is different. They all come to us with their own set of needs and desires, but are they valuing the end product, a shiny piece of online learning, or are they valuing the process we go through to get to a shiny piece of online learning? And even in our sales approach and when we're talking to clients, I guess we take time to understand what part the client's valuing, so that we can spend time going through our process, or we can spend time showing them the bright, shiny, finished piece. To make sure that we're pushing their buttons, not just giving them the sales story that we want to sell. The canned 101. This is how we deliver e-learning response.
Thank you so much for sharing your interesting idea with us today, Shane. We really appreciate it. Where can our viewers find more about you and Otrain?
So Otrain is at otrain.com.au, otrain.com.au, or connect with me on LinkedIn, simply Shane Ridley. Love to meet, love to chat, love to connect, and would love to help anybody who's watching out with some online training. Simply put, it's a better way to train.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Shane. We really appreciate that. And thank you so much for watching. If you have any thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share on this conversation, please go to our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Google+, or Twitter. Until next time, you have a great month. Thanks, everyone. Bye.